The following Kellogg Insight podcast is brought to you by the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. When is a product discount not just a product discount? When it becomes a very effective way to manipulate corporate earnings. Research by Kellogg professor Craig J. Chapman shows that corporations use price discounts on products to improve earnings at the end of a term, frequently at the expense of long-term profits and the company's own strategic interests. And sometimes these decisions are made at the highest levels of the company. And now, writer Lisa Holton speaks to Craig Chapman about the dangers inherent in product discounts.
Hi, Professor.
Good morning.
People usually think of product discounts as a way to stay competitive, but you found that companies also use them to improve earnings at the end of a reporting period. What inspired this research?
So for about the last 20 years or so, accounting academics have assumed that we get to the end of the year, you send the numbers to the CFO and the CEO, and they manipulate them and spit out whatever number that they want to do. And it struck me that maybe that wasn't the whole story, and perhaps companies could do stuff before they got to the end of the year and then report it truthfully afterwards. So either increasing promotions or reducing prices, reducing research and development expenses, that kinds of thing, and then being able to report them truthfully afterwards.
So from this concept, you got the issue down to cans of soup. Talk about that.
The story there was at about the same time I was having these ideas, I had a one-year-old son, and I started being a doctoral student at the time. I was a regular shopper for diapers and baby formula, and found that there was a regular pattern of price discounts that I was able to observe, and I was able to stockpile the product and get a better average price overall. So I was saving some money looking at this. And I started to question, if I can save money, is everybody else doing this? And is there more to it? And why are companies offering price discounts in this way?
Mm-hmm. So why did you tie this to basic earnings adjustments?
Well, at about the same time, we saw in that summer, the car companies, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, were offering the first round of employee pricing for all, and they were getting a huge bump in sales. And then the next couple of months after they stopped the promotion activity, it was the worst October and November in Detroit history. Well, until this year, I guess. But at the time, it was pretty bad news in Detroit. And it dawned on me that there was more to it. They were able to manipulate the earnings pattern and get people to buy things today at a discount price that they might have purchased the same amount tomorrow at full price. So it appeared to be costly to the firms, but it was boosting the earnings in this period, and that was what seemed to be driving the incentives and the discounts.
Mm-hmm. Is this a case where it's a far better idea for a company to do this in good times? Does it hurt them a lot more in bad times?
Well, when we look at that, you sort of say in good times, a customer's stocking up. They do seem to have the spare income. The cost of storing things in your pantry as they kind of stuff your pantry is relatively cheap because you've got the space and you've got the money to do it. As the economy turns south, it's going to be a little harder to do that. And maybe there's more of your competitors who are trying this behavior as well. So the question is who's doing it and how much pantry stuffing is going on, and are people just using up their stockpiles? Mm-hmm. So it may turn out that this year is a particularly hard year for the companies to continue doing this.
Mm-hmm. Why did you choose soup, though?
Well, from a research design point of view, you need a lot of different manufacturers, and certainly when I started looking at diapers, I wasn't convinced that I wanted to be labeled the diaper guy. So maybe the soup guy was a little better. But what I also need from a research design is to make sure it's not seasonality patterns that are going on. So I actually needed, from an academic point of view, companies that had lots of different financial year ends. And it turns out, for whatever reason, soup companies are all over the year in terms of their financial year ends. So it was an opportunity that coming into it, I wasn't sure that it was going to work, but ex post it worked out really nicely from a research design. Mm-hmm. So I'm able to identify whether it's seasonal issues or the companies that are doing this, and the financial calendar seems to be the driving force.
Mm-hmm. The companies that you analyzed, was this a long-time pattern of earnings management?
So I've looked at data from as long ago as 25 years ago up until the last 18 months or so. And the pattern seems to be prevalent throughout the history. It's not just a good time thing. It's not a bad time thing. It seems to be something that whenever a company has an earnings target to meet, whether it's just making a profit, whether it's beating analyst forecasts or beating last year the same quarter, it seems to be these incentives seem to keep coming back and biting them. And so that's when they do it a little bit more.
Now, who's really driving this within an organization? Is it the marketing department or is it the finance department?
So in discussions with different companies, it depends how the company is managed primarily and who actually calls the shots. So there are some organizations that I've been told it's clearly the marketing department, others it's clearly finance. At the end of the day, it's linked to the earnings management position and the quarterly earnings. So it's hard to say what it is. One of the difficulties of prior research, though, is it's very difficult to identify who within the company is doing this, because anybody could be saying, let's cut prices. One of the quirks of our design, which we didn't realize until we were looking at the results, though, is when it comes to those end-of-aisle displays at the supermarket, those are booked several months in advance, right? These are not driven by the earnings management for this quarter's earnings, because they can't be. They were booked months ahead. But what we actually found was there's switching behavior. Although the company doesn't increase the number of aisle promotions, they switch from their little brands to their big brands in those aisle displays. And this sort of suggests that it's not just the brand manager, because the brand manager for the small brand, that person's having to give up their promotion. So they're going to suffer this quarter at the expense of the big brand who's actually going to benefit. So to me, that's indicative that it's someone above the brand managers. Now, within some of the companies, we have regional super brand managers or whatever. But it's definitely not just the guy at the brand level.
So much for brand management.
It is, but if you talk to anyone in that space, if some of them are booking their promotions months in advance because they know at the end, in the last month of the year, the CFO is going to come in and say no more spending, right? We know that sort of thing happens. In this setting, we're actually seeing people increasing promotions. So there's definitely a plan coming in, but the brand managers would love it if the finance department in some of these companies would leave them alone and let them run their plan for the year without interference.
So what are the long-term pitfalls of this kinds of earnings management?
Well, one of the difficulties is that the consumers are stuffing their pantries. Sooner or later, the pantry is going to be full, and you're not going to be able to maintain the same level of sales in that process. So that's one problem, and I think this morning Procter & Gamble came out with their earnings announcement saying that volumes were down because the inventory in the channel was being reduced and consumers were buying a little bit less. And my suspicion is that we're seeing part of that behavior going on. The other thing is that there's going to be more and more consumers like me who start buying things when they're on promotion. So you get this two-tier structure going on where there may be some people still paying the full price, but there's a lot of people who are shopping for the bargains only, and they're being trained to purchase on discount. So if we think about fashion retail, a lot of people are trained to know when the next promotion is going to come. And so I think we're going to see a lot more strategic buying, and as information on coupons becomes much more widely available, as it has been over the last few years, we're going to see consumers getting savvy to this, and it's going to be more difficult to run these strategies successfully.
Well, it's interesting because consumers in fatter times don't necessarily watch the coupons as closely. Right now, it would seem that manufacturers are facing this problem.
Right. So some friends of mine who are working in the coupon industry, they're telling me that this is a great time to be in that business. People are very focused on the coupons. Of course, though, the distribution on the internet of some of these coupons means it's very difficult for the manufacturers to control who is getting the coupons. So what we're starting to see is individual personalized mailings of coupons to targeted consumers. And I think the retail trade is going to have to become a lot smarter about how they run these coupon promotions, because customers are just learning when to time their purchases in this way.
How open is top management about this practice?
I'm surprised. It tends to be something that everyone tells me that they're not doing it, but everybody else is. That's a favorite answer. Although we're starting to see examples, so the CEO of Campbell's in a quarterly earnings announcement recently actually admitted that they use their marketing actions to manage their earnings. In the transcripts, the word managing earnings is redacted, but it's there on the audio version. So in the soup business where I've been looking, it's widespread. If you look at electronics retailers, You'll hear people talking about that. There was a pharmaceutical company that there was a truck accident just north of Chicago 5 or 6 years ago, and this truck magically had, or allegedly had, something like $15 to $20 million of drugs on board a truck. Now I'm thinking this is a big truck. It turns out that the truck accident happened on the last day of the fiscal quarter, and they were including this in the earnings, and they shouldn't have been. Unfortunately for the management, the SEC started to look a little bit more closely, and there is an SEC enforcement action against that particular firm and its management.
So there has to be some care applied to this practice.
You have to be very careful. The Securities and Exchange Commission, they're pretty busy with other things right now, but I suspect that they're going to be looking into large shipments at the year end a little bit more carefully than they have been in the past.
So did you find any surprises in your research?
I think that the one single surprise for me in the research was that coming into this, I thought that this was going to be a very costly action for the company, right? And I thought that the idea that people were buying today at low price instead of buying tomorrow at full price was something that was going to be very costly to the firm. And in terms of the prior literature, you see this post-promotion dip in sales, and it's very prevalent. What's interesting, though, is there's a broader question, which is, if the promotions are being run in response to competitors, it appears that it may not actually be as costly as it first looks to be from the company's point of view. So before we start saying this is a terrible action that the company shouldn't be doing at all, you have to recognize that it's partly driven by the competitive nature of the business. And if all your competitors are doing it, it's really hard not to.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much.
The Kellogg School of Management develops global leaders who make contributions of lasting significance for the world. Whether you're looking for knowledge you can apply at work or a topic that will spark your creativity, Kellogg Insight is your destination for the latest ideas from Northwestern's top business faculty. Learn more at kellogg.northwestern.edu.